So usually when we talk about a workplace crisis, there's this heavy expectation of visibility.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's loud.
Right. An alarm goes off on a dashboard, or a critical server crashes, and suddenly sirens are wailing.
Yeah, automated emails just flood the entire company's inboxes.
Exactly. And the CEO is immediately pulling everyone into, like, an emergency all-hands meeting.
It's noisy. Everyone in the hierarchy is just hyper aware that something has gone fundamentally wrong.
Right, because we've been conditioned to view crises as these grand, highly visible events, haven't we?
Yeah. I mean, the modern corporate structure is essentially built around that assumption. When the foundation cracks, the sensors are supposed to alert the top floor immediately.
Right, you've got your escalation protocols, your incident response teams.
Exactly, a whole language dedicated to making sure the upper echelons know exactly what is happening on the ground.
But then, you step completely outside of that digital corporate environment. You look at industrial frontline operations, and
The
suddenly,
whole alarm system is just muted.
completely, we are looking at a crisis landscape today that is completely invisible to the people at the top.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. I mean, the machinery breaks, the timeline is totally impossible, the stakes for the workers are incredibly high, and yet,
The executive suite never hears a single whisper of it.
which is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. Welcome, by the way. We are so glad you're here with us.
Yes, welcome. We're getting into something really special today.
We are. We're unpacking this extraordinary, highly specific document titled The Walking University Asbestos Miracle in the Garage Shed.
I love that title. It's essentially a micro case study in unsung operational brilliance.
Yeah, it really forces us to examine the invisible ingenuity that, keeps massive operations from totally collapsing.
All while upper management just operates under this illusion of a perfectly smooth, automated system.
Right. And to understand the brilliance of the solution we're going to talk about, you really have to feel the crushing weight of the problem first.
Oh, the setting alone tells you everything you need to know about the disparity between the top and the bottom of the hierarchy here.
Totally. So picture this. You are in a dusty factory yard. It's late in the afternoon.
And the focal point is this garage shed.
Yeah, it's described in the source as a cluttered, out-of-the-way space. It's normally entirely ignored by everyone, except, of course, the people who actually have to work in it.
Right, it is definitely not the showcase floor.
No, not the lobby. It's basically the forgotten utility closet of the entire operation.
And, neglected spaces are fascinating sociological environments. Most of the time, they just operate in this state of benign neglect.
Right, as long as things are running, nobody cares.
Exactly. The workers are left alone. But that dynamic shifts violently the moment an audit is announced.
Oh, man, the dreaded audit.
Right. The document establishes that a very strict management team is scheduled to conduct a site inspection in exactly 2 days.
2 days, that is nothing.
It's basically tomorrow in corporate time. And suddenly, that spotlight just sweeps over this ignored garage shed.
And every speck of dust, every misplaced tool.
Becomes a massive liability, especially any structural damage.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the urgency here is centered around one specific crucial component.
The asbestos panel.
Right. It's broken and desperately needs replacing. And like we said, 2 days is nothing in industrial procurement time.
Not.
At all. And for you listening, think about the stakes here.
Yeah.
A failed inspection in this context is not just, a bad performance review.
Oh, no. If management walks into that shed and sees a broken panel or even a sloppy attempt at a repair, the reputation of that entire frontline crew is destroyed.
The blame flows entirely downward.
Always. We really have to consider the intense vulnerability of the frontline worker in this scenario.
Yeah, because their livelihoods are fundamentally dependent on things they don't even control.
Precisely. They rely on an uninterrupted flow of materials. They are accountable for the appearance of the shed, but they don't control the budget
Or the supply chain.
or the delivery schedules. It creates this environment of latent anxiety. And when an audit is announced, that anxiety just spikes into active dread.
Which makes the arrival of the replacement panel feel like an absolute triumph, right? The crew actually manages to secure a brand new asbestos sheet.
A miracle in itself.
Right. And it gets delivered that morning. So for this brief window, they think they've beaten the system.
They have the part, they have 48 hours to install it, and the audit is going to be fine.
It's the moment where the tension is supposed to resolve.
The standard operating procedure worked, or so they think.
Until they actually look at the delivery. I mean, this is where the universe just delivers a crushing blow.
The brand new replacement sheet arrives with a crack already in it.
And this is not like a minor cosmetic chip on the edge that you could just hide behind a frame.
No, the document uses incredibly potent language here.
Yeah, it calls it a mocking slash.
A mocking slash. It's such a visceral description.
It really is. It's a clean diagonal crack right across the surface.
That phrase really captures the psychological devastation of the moment. It feels intentional, even though it's just really bad luck.
Yeah, when you're under that much stress, an inanimate object failing feels like a personal attack.
Oh, it really does.
For you listening, this is exactly like getting the blue screen of death on your laptop.
Oh, 5 minutes before the biggest presentation of your career.
Yes, you've done everything right, and the system still fails you at the 11th hour.
You ordered the part, you tracked the shipping, you prepped the workspace.
And then you unwrap it, and it's functionally useless. You are just trapped.
This raises an important question about human psychology, actually, because the immediate reaction of the crew, especially the carpenter tasked with the installation, is complete paralysis.
They just freeze.
They freeze. And the freeze response in high-stakes environments is heavily studied in occupational psychology.
It's not a sign of incompetence, right?
Not at all. Freezing is the brain's natural response to an inescapable trap.
So what's happening in his head in that moment?
From a cognitive standpoint, the carpenter's prefrontal cortex is suddenly overloaded. He is caught between two immovable objects.
The physical impossibility of getting another panel and the looming management inspection.
Exactly. He has zero agency, but complete accountability.
I mean, he can't fix it, but he knows he's going to be the one fired for it.
Precisely. When you're faced with a threat where neither fight nor flight is a viable option, the nervous system just defaults to paralysis.
Wow. Because you can't fight a broken piece of asbestos.
Right, and you can't flee from your job without losing your livelihood. So you just stand there in the dusty shed, staring at this mocking slash, completely unable to process a path forward.
Because the standard operating procedures offer no solution. The manual has literally run out of pages.
The system is dead.
But the paralysis isn't universal, and this is where the story pivots.
Yes.
Because while the carpenter is effectively short-circuiting in front of this panel, someone else in the shed does the exact opposite.
We are introduced to Sammy.
Yeah, and the contrast is just immediate. His brain doesn't freeze. The text says it ignited.
Sammy represents this amazing shift from structural reliance to pure ingenuity.
He bypasses the panic entirely. He just snaps directly into a hyper-focused state of problem solving.
When the system fails, most people wait for the system to correct itself. Sammy realizes the system isn't coming to save them, so he immediately assumes the burden of creating a new one on the spot.
And his very first move is honestly completely baffling if you're just an observer in that room.
Oh, it makes no sense on the surface.
Right. He doesn't call a supplier. He doesn't look for industrial glue. He turns to another worker, this guy named Ryapan, and barks out an incredibly specific, strange order.
He tells him to bring a polythene sheet and a barrel of waste latex.
Which is such a bizarre pivot from the immediate problem.
He's literally asking for garbage to fix a critical structural component.
And this is where I find the human dynamics just as fascinating as the physical fix they're about to do.
The social element is huge here.
Right, because look at Ryapan's reaction. Or really, his lack of a reaction.
He doesn't question it.
No. If I'm in a high-stakes crisis and my colleague tells me to go fetch a barrel of industrial waste to fix our most pressing problem, I'm going to be so defensive.
You'd want to know the plan.
I would demand a thesis on why he needs garbage. I'd ask if he's lost his mind. But Ryapan doesn't blink.
Not a single follow-up question.
He just physically turns and runs to execute the order. It reminds me of like a veteran surgeon in an ER.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, when the surgeon holds out a hand, the nurse just slaps a scalpel into it. They don't ask for a peer-reviewed study on why the scalpel is necessary.
You're identifying a really rare organizational dynamic here. What we are witnessing is a masterclass in teamwork without words.
Teamwork without words. I love that.
It's the manifestation of implicit trust. In most corporate environments, teamwork is highly verbal.
Lots of meetings, alignment, consensus building.
Exactly. But in environments where the stakes are visceral and immediate, true operational teams rely on something much deeper.
Ryapan's execution tells us everything we need to know about Sammy's history in this yard, doesn't it?
It implies a massive reservoir of social capital. Sammy isn't just a peer who had a random thought. He is a proven entity.
He's earned that credibility.
Building that kind of trust currency takes years of consistent, high-pressure performance. He's clearly navigated crises before.
So he's earned the right to bypass consensus.
Exactly. When a leader with that specific track record gives a bizarre instruction, the team understands that the explanation will come in the execution.
They just need to provide the materials.
It is a level of psychological safety that, honestly, executive leadership teams spend millions on consultants trying to achieve, and here it is, operating silently in a dusty shed.
It's the absolute antithesis of bureaucratic hesitation.
Truly.
But let's look at the materials themselves, because Sammy's request for waste latex isn't just a random act of desperation, right?
No, it's highly calculated.
There is this deeply layered history behind why that specific barrel of waste is even sitting in the yard.
The material availability is the hidden variable that makes all this ingenuity possible.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The narrative pulls back to give us the lineage of this latex.
Yes, the backstory of the waste.
We learn that these hardened chunks of latex waste were usually chopped up and mixed into the production of battery cases.
Right.
But crucially, this recycling process wasn't some standard industry practice. It was an innovation introduced to this specific factory years prior by the narrator's father.
A figure referred to in the text as the walking university.
The walking university. That implies such a deep, localized intelligence, completely outside of formal education.
It really does. What's fascinating here is the concept of innovation born from necessity.
Yeah, a legacy quietly enabling a miracle.
The father looked at industrial byproduct literal waste that would normally be discarded or burned, and found a way to repurpose it to make battery cases stronger or cheaper.
And by doing that, he fundamentally altered the physical inventory of the factory. He kept waste on site as an asset.
It's a textbook example of how a culture of resourcefulness yields compounding organizational dividends.
Can you explain how that compounding works in this context? Because on the surface, making battery cases has absolutely nothing to do with fixing a broken asbestos panel.
It has everything to do with the environment of potentiality.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, when the father innovated the battery case process, he wasn't just solving a manufacturing problem for his own era. He was inadvertently creating a toolkit for the future.
Oh, wow.
Innovation in a closed system leaves residue. If the factory operated under strict, unimaginative protocols where all waste was immediately purged, Sammy's ignited mind would have had nothing to work with.
He could have been the smartest guy on earth, but without the physical materials, he's stuck.
Exactly. His ingenuity would have been useless.
So, the father's past resourcefulness essentially subsidized Sammy's present crisis management.
That is a perfect way to put it. It highlights how intelligence in a workplace is cumulative.
It builds on itself.
Right. The father trained the organization to see latex not as trash, but as a secondary material. Sammy inherited that worldview.
He didn't have to invent the concept of repurposing waste. That cultural permission was already there.
He just had to apply it to a radically different problem.
It totally reminds me of culinary history, actually.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, you look at some of the greatest peasant dishes in the world, and they were invented entirely just to use up the scraps that the nobles threw away, right?
That's a great point.
Or like evolutionary biology, where a trait evolves for one specific reason, but then ends up being perfectly suited for a completely different crisis millions of years later.
Like pre-adaptation.
Right, like feathers evolving for warmth and then later being used for flight.
Yes, pre-adaptation in an industrial setting. The materials were just lying dormant, waiting for a mind capable of recognizing their secondary potential.
Which brings us to the actual application. This is where the dusty garage floor is suddenly transformed into a makeshift laboratory.
It really becomes a clinical space.
Sammy takes complete control, and he begins directing the carpenter, the exact same carpenter who was paralyzed 5 minutes ago.
Now he is executing a highly delicate step-by-step procedure under Sammy's guidance.
It's a total shift from panic to hyper-controlled methodology.
Yes.
So let's walk through the exact steps of this methodology, because the sensory details in the source really ground you in the tension of that room.
The process is meticulous.
It is. I mean, it's like watching a Michelin-starred sous chef execute a high-stakes recipe for the head chef.
That's a brilliant way to picture it.
First, Sammy has them lay down the polythene sheet flat across the floor. Then they pour a thin, even layer of softened waste latex right over the plastic.
Creating a bed for the panel.
Right. Next, they take this incredibly delicate, cracked asbestos sheet and lower it onto that latex bed. Then comes another layer of latex poured over the top surface, completely covering the asbestos.
Enveloping it entirely.
Yeah, and finally, They seal the entire thing with a second polythene sheet.
Yeah.
They create this massive industrial sandwich on the floor.
And we have to remember, all of this is happening in near silence. The air is thick with tension, and there is this sharp, overwhelming chemical smell of latex filling the shed.
The atmosphere has just become entirely focused. But I want to push back on the idea of this being a simple repair and really break down the material science of what Sammy is doing.
We definitely should, because calling it a repair undersells it.
Right, because initially I looked at this and thought, okay, he's basically using the latex as a really intense glue to stick the crack together.
A lot of people would assume that.
But the way you encapsulate something top and bottom, pressing it between polythene, he is fundamentally altering the material properties of the panel, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He is not fixing an asbestos panel. He is manufacturing a completely new composite material right there on the floor.
So how does this composite fundamentally differ from the original panel?
Well, we have to look at the inherent properties of the raw materials. Asbestos traditionally is valued for its rigidity.
It's strong, it's heat resistant.
Exactly. Excellent compressive strength. But it is fundamentally a crystalline fibrous silicate.
Meaning it's brittle.
Very brittle under sheer stress or impact, which is exactly why it cracked diagonally during shipping. It can't absorb kinetic energy, it just fractures.
It's like glass then. Strong until it hits its breaking point, and then it just shatters completely.
Precisely. Now consider the latex. Latex is a complex emulsion of polymers.
It's rubber.
Right. When it cures, it becomes rubber. It has incredible tensile strength, immense flexibility, and high impact resistance.
But on its own, it's useless for a wall.
Exactly. It has no structural rigidity. You couldn't build a wall out of a sheet of rubber. It would just flop over.
So by combining them in this sandwich, he is basically forcing the materials to cover each other's weaknesses.
He is creating a synergistic matrix. When he pours that liquid latex, it doesn't just sit on the surface.
It seeps in.
It seeps deep into the microscopic fissures of the asbestos fibers, and most importantly, it floods that diagonal slash.
Blinding the whole thing together.
Yes. As the latex cures, it creates a mechanical interlock with the rigid asbestos.
So the latex acts as, like, a flexible skeleton.
Or rather, the asbestos remains the rigid skeleton, and the latex becomes this resilient, shock-absorbing skin and connective tissue.
That makes so much sense.
The rigidity of the asbestos gives the panel the structure it needs to function as a wall, while the rubberized encapsulation ensures that any future stress is distributed across the polymer matrix.
Instead of concentrating at the fault line of the crack.
Exactly. He didn't just repair the panel to its original state. He engineered a structurally superior version. It's now waterproof and highly impact resistant.
But what about the polythene sheets? Why use those at all? Why not just paint the latex on and let it dry in the open air?
The polythene is actually crucial for two main reasons. First, it acts as a release liner. It ensures the panel doesn't permanently bond to the concrete floor of the shed, which would be disastrous.
Oh, right. You'd never get it up.
Exactly. And second, by sandwiching the liquid latex and pressing it with the top sheet, the polythene forces the emulsion to spread evenly.
So it pushes the air out.
It eliminates air pockets and ensures a completely smooth, non-porous finish as it cures. It controls the aesthetic outcome.
Ah, the aesthetic outcome, which, as we'll see, is just as important as the structural integrity.
If not more so.
It is genuinely incredible that a worker in a high-stress, 2-day deadline scenario was able to intuitively apply the principles of composite engineering using waste material.
It's a staggering level of frontline ingenuity.
But the assembly is only the first phase. Once the sandwich is on the floor, the act of problem-solving ends, and the excruciating wait begins.
The text notes that they had to leave it to cure for a full hour.
I can't even imagine. The transition from hyperactivity to forced passivity has to be the most psychologically draining part of any crisis.
Oh, the waiting is always the hardest part.
I mean, picture the atmosphere in that room. You have the carpenter, Rayapan, and Sammy just standing around in this pungent, chemical-smelling shed.
Staring at a piece of plastic on the floor.
Yes. Everything, their reputations, their jobs, their ability to pass this audit is happening on a microscopic level underneath that polythene.
They have surrendered total control to the chemical curing process.
It requires an immense amount of discipline not to interfere, right?
Absolutely. The temptation to peel back a corner to check on it too early would be overwhelming.
But that could ruin the structural bond.
Exactly. That hour of waiting is a massive test of their collective nerve. And it's grounded entirely in their trust in Sammy's unseen chemistry.
Finally, though, the hour is up. The moment of truth arrives.
This is the turning point.
Sammy steps forward, and he lifts the top polythene sheet. And the text describes the result as stunning.
The panel is essentially reborn.
Yeah, perfectly fused, rubberized, and structurally reinforced.
It transitioned from a fractured liability into a unified asset.
And the physical reaction of the team is so telling here. The carpenter's eyes just go wide. Rayapen lets out a breath he clearly didn't realize he'd been holding.
You can just feel this massive, palpable release of tension in the room.
But there is a very specific distinction made in the narrative here that we really need to unpack. Because it's critical.
Yes, the terminology used.
The panel did not look repaired. It didn't look like it had been patched. The word used is rejuvenated. It looked perfect.
And that aesthetic distinction is the hinge upon which their entire survival rests.
So what does this all mean? I want to challenge this slightly.
Go ahead.
If the primary goal is just to ensure the shed is functional and structurally sound for the audit, why does the aesthetic perfection matter so much?
That's a very fair question.
Right. Let's say Sammy had used, I don't know, heavy-duty industrial bonding tape.
Like duct tape on steroids.
Exactly. It would hold the panel together, it would keep the weather out, it would be a structurally sound repair, but it would be visibly patched.
A clear repair job.
Why wouldn't a functional patch be enough to survive the management inspection? I mean, it works, right?
It works physically, yes. But an audit is not merely an inspection of structural integrity.
What is it then?
It is an inspection of systemic control. When upper management walks through a facility, they are reading the environment for signs of stability or chaos.
Okay, I see where you're going.
A visible patch, no matter how structurally sound it is an immediate, glaring red flag.
Because it implies that something broke in the first place.
Yes, it implies failure, poverty of resources, and a breakdown in the established protocols.
Wow, so management doesn't see a fix, they see a flaw.
Exactly. If management sees a taped-together panel, the narrative they construct is not, oh, look how resourceful our frontline team is.
Probably more like, why did this break?
Why wasn't a requisition form submitted for a new part? Are we underfunded? Are these workers careless?
A patch suggests that the operation is just operating on the edge of failure, relying on jury-rigged solutions to survive.
It pierces the illusion of a well-oiled machine.
And management demands that illusion of perfect control.
They desperately want to believe that the supply chain is flawless, that parts arrive pristine, and that standard operating procedures govern every single action.
So Sammy's fix wasn't just brilliant because it held the asbestos together.
No, it was brilliant because the polythene pressing technique yielded a smooth, uniform surface that mimicked manufactured perfection.
It completely erased the evidence of the crisis.
It is the aesthetics of competence.
The aesthetics of competence. I love that. They didn't just fix the wall, they manufactured an alibi.
They saved their dignity and their professional standing by presenting management with exactly what they expected to see.
A flawlessly functioning system, which perfectly stages the profound irony of the climax of this whole document.
The walkthrough.
Yes, they install the composite panel, the shed is fully restored, looking arguably better than it did before, and 2 days later, the ultimate test arrives.
The management team conducts their walkthrough.
You could almost feel the temperature drop in the room as these suits walk into the garage shed.
The tension must have been absolutely suffocating.
Right. I mean, for you listening, imagine this. The managers are inspecting the floors, checking the inventory, scrutinizing the tools.
And inevitably, their eyes land on the newly installed, rubberized asbestos panel.
The crew is just standing there, knowing that their jobs are hanging on the visual perception of these executives.
And the payoff is staggeringly ironic.
It is almost comedic. One of the managers inspects the panel, nods approvingly, and says, "Good replacement work."
It gets better.
Yeah, another manager actually chimes in to add, "Looks better than the old one."
It is a devastating critique of hierarchical awareness, completely disguised as a compliment.
I am trying to think of an equivalent scenario. It's like, okay, imagine an art critic.
Okay.
An art critic praising a magnificent, expensive marble sculpture, going on and on about the fine Italian stone, completely unaware that the artist actually carved it out of a block of soap from the bathroom.
That's hilarious, but it's totally accurate. Or like a senior software executive reviewing a pristine user interface.
Oh yeah. Praising the development team for buying such an elegant enterprise software package.
Completely oblivious to the fact that the backend is literally held together by a junior developer who wrote a massive, chaotic script of duct tape code at 3 a.m. the night before.
just to keep the servers from melting.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the executives are praising the efficiency of the purchasing department.
They're validating their own standard operating procedure.
The belief that a broken part was identified, a new part was ordered, and a pristine replacement was installed.
They are totally oblivious to the staggering frontline ingenuity that is actually staring them in the face.
And while management is praising their own hypothetical procurement system, we have to ask, where is Sammy?
The text paints this incredibly vivid portrait of him in this moment. He isn't front and center. He is standing quietly in the corner of the shed.
His expression is completely calm.
His hands are clasped behind his back. Beside him, Rabpan is actively struggling to hide a smile.
And the carpenter looks like he might burst into tears of pure relief.
Management has absolutely no idea they are standing in front of a resurrected piece of garbage, and Sammy makes no effort to enlighten them.
Sammy's silence in that moment is perhaps the most sophisticated strategic move in the entire narrative.
See, this is where my ego would totally betray me.
Really? You'd speak up?
Oh, 100%. If I had chemically fused a broken panel using 30-year-old battery waste and saved the entire department from a failed audit, I would want a medal.
You'd want the credit.
I would step forward, interrupt the manager, and say, "Actually, sir, standard procurement failed us. I engineered a novel composite material to save the company's timeline."
Which would be a massive mistake.
But why? Why does Sammy swallow his pride and stay in the corner?
Because Sammy deeply understands the sociological divide between the front line and the executive suite.
Okay, unpack that.
If he steps forward and reveals the truth, he is assuming that management will reward innovation.
Which they always claim they do.
They claim to, yes. But in rigid, highly structured hierarchies, unsanctioned innovation is indistinguishable from insubordination.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Even if it saves the company money and passes the audit?
Absolutely. Think about how a compliance-focused manager would actually react to that revelation. They wouldn't see a genius engineer.
What would they see?
They would see a massive violation of protocol. The immediate questions would be, why wasn't a risk assessment filed for the use of waste latex?
Oh, geez.
Does this composite material meet building safety codes? Why did you deviate from the approved repair manual?
Oh, I see. By revealing the fix, he exposes the chaos.
Exactly.
He forces management to acknowledge that their perfect system failed and that a frontline worker had to break the rules to fix it.
And management never wants to admit that. Sammy realizes that the audit is fundamentally a performance.
Right.
Management wants to play the role of the observant overseer of a perfect system, and the crew needs to play the role of obedient cogs in that machine.
So by accepting the praise for a good replacement, Sammy allows management to keep their comforting illusion.
He trades the personal glory of being recognized as an innovator for the absolute security of his team's survival.
He protects them from the bureaucracy. That is a profound level of emotional intelligence.
It is the hallmark of true, unsung brilliance. The most effective crisis management is almost always invisible to those at the top.
It just quietly absorbs the shock.
Exactly. The executives sleep soundly, confident that their rigid systems and protocols are foolproof and resilient.
But the reality, known only to the workers in the trenches, is that those systems frequently fail.
All the time. And when they do, the operation is kept alive by the unsanctioned, invisible ingenuity of people like Sammy, using whatever discarded materials they can find.
It really elevates this story from a simple workplace anecdote into a much broader commentary on how the modern world actually functions.
It absolutely does.
We constantly celebrate the highly visible innovators, the CEOs who give keynote speeches about disruption, synergy, and paradigm shifts.
The ones on magazine covers?
Exactly. But this narrative argues that the real disruption, the actual alchemy that keeps the economy moving, is happening in the neglected corners.
It is taking literal waste, applying profound localized intelligence, and turning it into a past inspection without ever taking credit for the miracle.
It forces a total reevaluation of what constitutes expertise. I mean, Sammy doesn't have an engineering degree.
The father, the Walking University, likely didn't either.
But their ability to observe material properties, understand human psychology under pressure, and navigate complex organizational dynamics, it rivals any textbook management theory.
They possess a fluidity of thought that rigid systems actively try to suppress.
Sammy didn't look at a cracked piece of asbestos and see a dead end. He looked at a barrel of waste and saw a binding agent, a waterproof seal, a flexible matrix.
He saw the latent potential in things that the formal system had deemed entirely worthless.
And he was only able to execute that vision because his team trusted him implicitly, and because a legacy of resourcefulness had already been seeded in that environment years prior.
It is a perfect closed-loop ecosystem of survival.
A synthesis of necessity, historical knowledge, and radical quiet competence.
Beautifully said.
Well, we have journeyed through an incredible amount of psychological and structural terrain today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We started with the deceptive nature of invisible crises and the crushing vulnerability of frontline workers facing an audit.
We examined the cruel twist of the broken replacement part and the neurobiology of the freeze response that paralyzed the crew.
We analyzed the rare dynamic of implicit trust that allowed Sammy to mobilize his team without a single explanation.
And the compounding organizational dividends generated by the father's historical innovations with waste latex.
We took a deep dive into the makeshift laboratory, exploring the structural engineering of encapsulating brittle silicates in a flexible polymer matrix to create a totally superior composite material.
We explored the immense psychological pressure of the curing process and the critical distinction between a functional patch and aesthetic perfection.
And finally, we unpacked the deep sociological irony of the management walkthrough, revealing why unsanctioned brilliance must remain hidden to survive in a rigid hierarchy.
It really is a masterclass in reading between the lines of how the world operates.
It is. Which brings us to our final thought for this deep dive. I want you to step back from this specific factory yard and apply this lens to the massive, complex systems that govern your own life.
The everyday systems.
Right. Look at your corporate infrastructure, the software platforms you rely on, the logistics networks that deliver your goods, or even the municipal systems of your city. When you look closely, and everything appears perfectly smooth, and leadership is loudly praising the flawless execution of standard operating procedures, ask yourself,
Just think about it.
how many of those pristine functional surfaces are actually just a broken piece of fragile infrastructure, quietly held together by industrial waste, a plastic sheet, and the unsung, invisible genius of a hidden Sammy who knew better than to ask for permission? Keep looking past the surface. Until next time.